All right, the obligatory, I think we're live. We are. Welcome, everybody. Glad to see so many people join. Also, a few returning attendees. Hi, Martin. Welcome to this webinar on creative automation with CE.SDK. It's the first webinar on automation that we're doing, and we're hoping you enjoy it, and very welcome for any type of feedback you might have after and during. Maybe first a word of introduction. My name is Jan. I am leading growth here at Imagely. I've been with the company for roughly 4 years now, even though in the very beginning I was actually a developer at Imagely. So I've seen the company grow and flourish and all these solutions evolve. I'm very excited now to be in a role where I can actually talk about it and to customers. And I'm joined by my lovely colleague Claudia, also from marketing. She'll be monitoring the chat, and you're very welcome to ask questions and comment throughout, which we can record. Claudia can interject if there's anything that you might want to hear more about. Sometimes easier to do that in line rather than doing the Q&A session. Claudia, anything you wanted to add?
No, I think that was a lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. And yeah, let's get started.
Yeah, as I said, there'll be Q&A afterwards. We try to make enough time for that, at least 15 minutes. The presentation and the demo portion, we're trying to cap at 30 minutes. And the recording will be available and emailed to you shortly. So for this portion, I'm going to walk you through a little bit of a theoretic foundation about CE.SDK architecture and what all the moving parts are, because I think it's important to understand when it comes to assessing the possibilities around automation with CE.SDK. Some of you during the last webinar might have already seen a brief demo, but it's much more approachable with a little bit of technical background. And then we're going to jump into brief demos and a little bit of a spotlight for one of our customers to see it in the real world example. And maybe if time allows, there's a little Easter egg as well that one of our team members prepared. But first, about us. So we're Imagely. We're around 50 people now. We're an entirely distributed company. Claudia, for instance, is joining us. What time is it? 10 p.m. or something from Bali. The less fortunate of us, such as myself, joining from Central Europe or somewhere else where it's drizzly and rainy outside. But we're meeting occasionally in a sunny location, and this also ensures that support and is available during most times of the day. We're splitting time, and usually fairly responsive, so that has a lot of upsides. So for our SDKs, a lot of you are already fairly familiar with our product offering. At Imagely, we are powering the creative workflow of hundreds of applications. So from the basics of photo editing and video editing, which was our bread and butter that we started out with, to ever more complex and involved use cases centering around design and mixed media use cases. So we have more powerful video editor for web as well now. And overall, around 500 million videos, photos, and designs are created with our editor in various use cases each month. And that leads to a certain scale and robustness that's just baked in, because there's no better test of a technology than this kind of deployment at scale. A couple of other pillars that I think make Imagely stand out, or Imagely solutions stand out among its competitors, is that we designed the entire SDK, so CreativeEditor SDK, that is taken our learnings from years of selling a photo editor and the video editor and put flexibility and customizability front and center. Because the range of our customers' use cases is just so wide, we're allowing not only for customizing our default UIs and offering many UIs out of the box, but for vast extensibility. So you can either build your entirely custom UI, or you can use our plugin system to extend functionality in various ways, so that we're quite confident that there really isn't any type of use case that has to do broadly with editing or creative automation that we cannot serve. As already mentioned, where our solution is highly scalable, our SDKs mostly run on the client and are highly performant there. And if you've taken a look at our change log, we just pride ourselves to always keep shipping. So we're very future-oriented, we're very responsive to trends and customer needs, and we try to ship as many useful features as possible. As you're going to learn, due to the architecture of our SDK, we have cross-platform capability just baked into our technology. So we built this engine that cross-compiles to any platform, and in principle, it's easy to add even like the most exotic ones. But we're going to dive into the engine next, because the engine is what lies at the heart of the creative automation capabilities that we offer. If we start out looking at the architecture, you can imagine that when we initially came up with the idea for the design editor, we were faced with the challenges that we had tackled previously. So there were many platforms to support, many kind of different use cases. And if you just build an SDK where all parts are combined, or where for every different platform you're using a different kind of high-level library or operating system API, you don't get the flexibility, and you get into like a maintenance purgatory where your work scales kind of linearly with the use cases and platforms you want to support. So we went into our tool shed and spent a few years to really build a solid graphics processing engine from the ground up in C++. And that forms at the heart of the SDK. And this engine is what then gets cross-compiled to other platforms. So on web, this would be WASM, so WebAssembly, and the native formats for mobile and for server. And then that not only means that we ensure the best performance we can get by having full control over it and being native first, but we also expose the same kind of API layer to every platform. And when we ship a feature and the engine team starts on it and does the heavy lifting, then it's a matter of interfacing with this API on these platforms to ship it simultaneously. And this is what also allows us to get some feature parity into our products. And on top of all this sit the UIs, the ones that we ship, so configuration of our default UIs, but also other UIs that are entirely custom that can use the graphics processing manipulation APIs to realize any kind of use case you can imagine. And I'm mentioning that because if you're doing anything around automation, you will always, on web, for instance, you import the engine package separately from the editor that you might be used to when you've only dealt with user-facing UIs. And if we broaden our scope a little bit, and we're trying to think where automation is relevant, We can broadly distinguish between client-side automation, so anywhere where we interact with the engine on the client, on the device, and server-side automation, where we deploy the engine to a server to perform some heavy lifting. So for the client side, anytime that we find an opportunity to enhance the user experience by automating a certain task, this is when we opt for client-side automations. A simple one is, for instance, design validation in a print context. User might design a postcard or a layout for a photo book, and it's important for us to tell the user something's protruding outside of into the bleed margin, or here's a spec that you're potentially violating, and we can simply render the scene in the background. So you're backgrounding the engine, run the validation, display the information to the user. Likewise, any type of or many types of automation, they have a design step up front. Someone's designing a template or editing a photo that will then be rendered in high resolution. And we do want to show previews of what the automated rendered result will look like, so the user can take action and check their work. And these kinds of previews that we render on the client also require the engine, as well as autosave optimizations, that kind of stuff. So you might want to perennially occasionally render the scene, store it on a server, persist it, so that if anything happens, the work doesn't get lost. And while these are not really super obvious things that we think about when we talk about automation, they're still very important to ensure an ideal user experience, and they require you to have the flexibility to interact directly with the CE.SDK engine. Then on the server side is what we usually think about when we talk about automation, and this is stuff like bulk generating designs from a template. So imagine I have a catalog of products, shoes, whatnot, and some template for an ad or a flyer, and I want to populate that and create as many variations as there are products in my catalog. I can offload that to the server. I can parallelize the work and let the server perform the heavy lifting, and then deploy it wherever I need to deploy it. So anything that's integrated in a data pipeline or that relies on the orchestration of some kind of workflow, we usually want to offload to the server. As well as privacy concerns, also something that comes up. You don't want to expose all the data that goes into creating these templates. Sometimes also permission stuff. Sometimes the data you want to display is entangled with things you don't want to expose. And in order to be able to preserve privacy, that's also something we want to do on the server. Most workflows, though, are a hybrid of that. For instance, the photo editing that you then render to high resolution, you want both the preview on the client and you want it to render it on the server. So a key part, so if I'm a little fast, I'm having an eye on the time. But at the heart of automation or automation capabilities is the ability to create templates that consist of a pre-configured layout that encodes things that are design specs, such as brand consistency or anything you want to fix into the design, and then usually a dynamic aspect, whether it's you swap out a logo, an image, or as an example here, we have a postcard with information about the recipient, a first name, an address, and I designed a postcard once, and then I want to data merge my database of recipients into that. And this is where I talk to the engine and say, here's the template, set this kind of string, set this variable, remove this placeholder. So the engine API that you interact with is what does the heavy lifting there, and then you get your variants. And I think this is fairly clear, but maybe we can pick up with the design generation just outlined and just have a look at one of our showcases that touches upon a lot of topics we just covered. Claudia, are there any questions so far? Angry comments? Anything I'm missing in the chat? Or
No, not yet. We're all good to go.
alrighty, then I'll get to automatic design generation. I know last couple of weeks back, I was on vacation. Harry already covered this briefly during the last webinar, but through our lens, there might be a few more interesting tidbits. So here we have an example where we're interacting with a third-party data source. These are podcasts from Apple Podcast. We have designed a generic template for any type of podcast and generated a preview for the user for different formats. So let's say we're looking for a podcast here. I'm easy, unlike This American Life. We pull the data from Apple Podcasts, get the logo, we get the title, and this template is then automatically populated with the data we get. We can, of course, also further restrain what the user can do by just getting rid of an editing UI altogether, and we'll just rely on forms to get the data that we need. So through the same mechanism, you can use user input message here, get some Ira Glass, I think so. For the title, swap out the color. Now this needs a second to be editable again while the template is recovering or not. Let me quickly reload. I've had this open for a while. Go with This American Life again. I'm just going to mute the color somewhat. I can deselect some sizes here, or I can, because CE.SDK is not only a design editor but also a video editor, can swap out the template while keeping the data. So I prepared a very simple video template that just shows a nice animation with some motion in the background, and then we update these generated assets as well. And what we usually have with these workflows is we do want to automate. Automation isn't perfect. There are always kind of edge cases where we need a human in the loop. So we either for a sample of data or for some edge cases, we want to display that back to the user. Let's go to image, display that back to the user, and give them an opportunity to edit the result, make some refinements, correct what has been generated. And this sort of covers a lot of aspects of automation that we touched upon, and has sort of thing we would normally run on the server, namely fetching a bunch of data, interpolating it into the template, is here for demonstration purposes done on the client. There is there's another demo that maybe makes the client-side automation a bit more tangible, and that is our 3D mockup editor. I think that this one gets too little love anyway, so I included it last minute here. Because if I'm in a context such as I want to design something for a physical product, then the affordances I want in the design editor are just the plain canvas I want to interact with. But I might, before I'm confident enough to really send this to a printer or have something produced, I do really want to view the product. So here in this demo, in the background, we in a set interval, we always grab the template, we render it, and then use another tool to render the texture onto a product. So I can actually look at my hat, examine it, and if I'm confident here, I can go to export or print or whatever. And just a brief note, all of these code examples are available on StackBlitz on GitHub. It's usually a great starting point for whatever you're trying to achieve. So chances are there's a similar demo somewhere on our site. And this is, for me, a prime example of usefulness or client-side
Sorry,
automation. Yeah.
Just a quick question we got from Volodymyr. He's asking, can we make a video animated template from any static design?
Not automatically, if that's the question. But you could, yeah, no, of course, yeah, you could import a static scene and then define animations on top of it. That should be possible. If not, I'll check with solutions, but there's definite interoperability. So yeah, I'm not 100% certain, but it shouldn't be difficult to transform a static template into something that you can load into the video editor. And now we have animation presets as well, so it's fairly easy to make these animations. There's not so much low-level stuff you have to do anymore. But I'll definitely check and get back to you with a definite answer. All right. Were there any other questions concerning the two demos?
Not so far.
If not, I would like to showcase something that a customer of ours has built. Second, if you were so kind as to share a video with us. That I have difficulty pulling up for some reason.
Is this our technical hiccup? That would be a good one.
Yeah, it says something. Let me restart the player here.
Okay, in the meantime, we got a question from Chris, who was wondering, how are the templates designed? Is it, well, I'm sorry, I'm not a developer. I'm not even going to attempt to say that. That a designer could use or does, it requires specialist coding knowledge.
For the templates, not at all. I mean, you can simply go into the default editor and design any type of template and define a variable. You can click on an element, set it as a placeholder, and insert text variables. It's really quite simple. And when it comes to design ideas or something to get started from, we have a batch of around 100 templates for many different use cases that you can use to get started. I'm assuming the question was about how do we get the variables in there and the placeholders and so forth.
Yes, there's a follow-up question about creation of templates. Is it manually done or imported? And I already can tell you that you can import design files into the editor. We have, go ahead.
Yeah, you can import design files of whether they're Photoshop designs or InDesigns. We have built importers for that. And then you might want to go in and define some constraints around elements if you're using them in an automation workflow. But this is also often something that our customers use us do. So if you have an ad tech platform and there's the design lead it's defining, okay, this logo stays here, these are our colors. So as a starting point, you can also take your customers' InDesign files, and then they usually know what to do with it. And we designed the editor with sort of the normal user in mind. So there's nothing, you don't need to be a pro to get to unlock these features.
Another question, can we specify a resize strategy, for example, cover contain, for images when resizing designs?
This topic is a little bit in flux. I know that now we're using a lot of, if you look into the example code, we're using a lot of heuristics, and the solution team is working on looking into some AI enhanced algorithms. I mean, we do have something like Smart Crop now, and similar things should be possible to do with other photo cases as well. So it's always, if you look at our plugin system, it's always fairly easy to, if you have an idea of how you can achieve that, to plug that into the SDK. And this is still kind of an active area of research and development. Just that it's so hard to really find something that is like one size fits all. That the demos that we do have are usually tailored to the example use case. I can follow up with an article that one of our solutions engineer wrote last year, where he outlines a few strategies around automatic resizing. So that was more of like a research project, but it's on the horizon.
Yeah, we have some more questions. First one about autosave. Is there an example of how to do this so as not to lose changes if an error occurs or something goes wrong?
Yeah. I mean, you can, for instance, take the mock-up example I just showed, or there are others. These are React examples where you see a loop running that's rendering a template, and then in the handler, in the event handler, it's up to you what you do. You can, whether you're running a design check or you're rendering it onto a base cap, or you're just sending it to your server. So this is fairly easy to implement, going off of any of these examples. But it might be a good inclusion in our code cookbook for the new docs. If there are, shall I go on briefly to show the example, and then we can do Q&As, or is
yeah.
that?
I mean, we are also following with the links in the chat, but maybe you can briefly, because I think maybe it's interesting to more people.
Yeah.
So, like, which formats for importing files are we supporting?
Yeah, I can go straight to a place on a website where you can find all these things. I'll reshare current window again. So this is our demo page for CE.SDK, and I think that down at the bottom we have under extensibility, because this was a demo of our plugin system. You can see examples for the importers that we support. I think for Illustrator, there's a little bit of a workaround that's documented here, but for Photoshop and InDesign, they're already in use by a few customers, and the feedback has been positive. It's really hard to cover all your bases, but I think in 90% of the cases, there should be no problems importing these files from InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, or PDF. I mean, we can send these around as well to anyone who's interested.
Yeah, so we are sharing the links in the chat, but we will also send a follow-up email after the webinar where we can include all the examples we have shared, and yeah, again, share all the links from the questions.
Here's maybe so here's the InDesign file. Here's the rendered import. You can go straight in and edit that. All right. Maybe. Oh, I still have some time. Can briefly show what OmniKey has done here. I'll speed this up slightly. So they're an ad tech platform, and they're basically an AI-driven platform that does a user interview. You tell the apps everything about your positioning, your branding, your product, and then it generates ad copy, ad designs on your behalf, and populates CE.SDK templates. And as you can see, they're really maxing out the kind of variations you can get in terms of style and mood. And what they also allow when you go into the editor, which I found was a pretty good pattern in order to do some quality assurance, is they have developed a plugin that opens a panel at the bottom. So you're now satisfied with your design, changed a few things, and now it fetches data from the database, images, logos, copy, and you can take the sample and sort of iterate through to see what the rendered result would look like. And then goes, after this kind of user approval step, it goes on to render these kinds of ads in different formats and tests them. And this is something that they completely built on top of our editor. It's nothing that we shipped, but it's a good illustration of what is possible, and what I think is a pretty good pattern if you're implementing something like that in your application. Okay.
We just got another question. Are there any examples of editor customization, for example, to adapt the standard editor view to the site design, change the size of the sidebar, the style of the button, etc.?
Customization examples, yes, absolutely. If you go to the showcase page, as long as sharing my screen, there's an entire customization section that takes you from theming and translation all the way to kind of building a custom UI. 1 second. Let me look for a good example. Yeah, let me share my screen. If there's no big queue of questions, we can always take the time to delve into a bit more stuff here. So usually the easiest thing you can do is configure the editor. A lot of stuff you can already control by just passing in a config object and tell the editor, include these tools, there's a theme, I don't want to show this functionality, and this how you can go from an advanced editor to something like this apparel focused UI. Loading in the t-shirt in the background. I mean, this is another like form-based control. And this is what we usually now recommend to customers, because it's enough for most use cases. You can also, if you have something super custom, you can go in and just build a UI and use the engine inside of the UI. So we had a popular theme park wanted a photo book and needed to be really stripped down. So you could also do something like this. It's a fairly simple UI. You just want to show a few templates and expose these controls. Nothing fancy. You want them to be able to choose between different layouts, pick a theme, a color, and a sticker, and that's it. So anything where a full-blown design editor would be too much, you can opt for something like this. And then, of course, there's basic stuff such as translations, theming, so changing color, position of control. So I think for any kind of customization case, depending on how deep you want to customize the editor, you'll find something on the demo page and also in the documentation.
All right, there are no more questions right now, so maybe we go to the Easter egg.
The Easter egg, of course. Let me first find it inside of this webinar interface. It's really quite cumbersome. It again tells me. 1 second. Reshare. Oh, there were so few hiccups that, of course, something had to come up. Okay, so something I really wanted to show, first of all, because it is a creative automation use case, but also because it covers another important automation aspect, and that is working with AI and AI coding tools with our SDK, because we have the engine, we have a very well documented API, and this is something a designer of ours built. Excuse me. A designer of ours built entirely with Cursor, hasn't written a line of code at all, to enable a fairly sophisticated automation case that takes this visual canvas to connect elements in there. But I'll play the video, and you can see it for yourself.
So I vibe coded this node-based workflow editor. You can add different types of nodes, like content nodes, for example, tables, images, files, general files, and of course also CE.SDK templates. And to showcase what this does, I prepared this table node here with already some content. This is fully editable, so I could replace and delete images, edit the text, add new columns, define what media type goes in here, add more rows, etc., etc. And to show what this actually does, let's open up this CE.SDK template node, upload a scene. This now analyzes the scene and found various variables, text variables, and image placeholders that are contained within the scene. I can also open the scene, so CE.SDK is also included in this prototype. And obviously I could edit this, but let's not for now. And now the interesting part is that I can connect the table with the template right here, and it will automatically match whatever columns I have with the available variables and media types. I can, of course, change these if these are not totally correct. And then based on this, hit generate, and it will, for each row, generate one variation of the source template, which also worked perfectly fine, is still editable. And yeah, the next step would be to maybe have some type of export node that allows for resizing, maybe hook into the editor a little more to have an image that is then automatically cropped or edited in every which way. But considering that I have no development expertise at all, this is quite impressive. This is possible right now with AI and with CE.SDK.
Yeah, so I'm always quite mind blown when I see entirely vibe coded projects such as this, and reportedly it took a day to code that. So I just thought it shines interesting light on another automation aspect that might be relevant to you guys. All right, maybe Claudia will have to have a webinar vibe coding with CE.SDK soon. Already tabled the idea, but everyone's being shy. We'll see.
Let's see about that. But shall we maybe tease a little bit about our AI capabilities?
Sure. Go right ahead. You may. I'll have a sip of water, and that's a good ending into the webinar.
Perfect. We still have 5 minutes, so if there are no more questions, maybe that's a good way to end it. So as Jan mentioned, we are very future focused. So whatever comes up, we are including it in our products. And latest addition is, of course, AI. And now within the editor, you can use the AI features without needing to change a window. You can generate an image. You can generate video. You can generate narration. But what's most interesting for me, and I think exciting, is the visual prompting, which basically turns the entire canvas to a prompt. So now you can include an image. You can say you want this girl to wear a red t-shirt. You want her to point that way. You want that background to be this and that. And yeah, you don't need to write a prompt. You basically prompt via the canvas and then hit the button and magic happens.
You might not be aware, Claudia, we just deployed this template inside the demo. So this should work. This is what Claudia was talking about. This is the AI editor. You can see here on the right-hand side. You can swap out the model you want to use in here. So these are completely modular. And since there are some multimodal models right now, such as GPT Image 1, this allows you to do is you can anything you compose on a page. So have this model point here, have her wear these shoes in front of this background. You can render this as an image, send it to the model. So turn page into image, takes everything in here as instruction, as a visual type of prompt, still generating. We have the pre-generated result here, but this is what the model outputs. We're thinking that this unlocks, this is such a natural way of interacting with Gen AI and creative output, because you can't fit that into a chat window or a text box. It's really difficult to iterate your way there. So if you can use a visual language in order to prompt a visual output, that's an ideal workflow if you're looking to integrate AI more deeply into your product. Sorry to take over. I just didn't know whether you were already aware that we had shipped this.
No, this is perfect. I just, didn't have that window open. All right, we have 2 more minutes. Maybe anyone has any more questions? Okay, Chris. The examples for ads and automation have shown images. What is the video capability like?
For creative automation, so we just, I mean, it's similar. If we go to the example I showed here, creative automation and design generation, we could have used the video template as well. So anything that works with images in terms of placeholders and variables also works with video. If I pick, let's have planet money here.
Jan, you're not sharing your screen anymore.
I'm not sharing my screen. Oh. Sorry. Right. So here, this is a video with the with these animations, and here I can also go in and edit this video with our video editor interface. So here's the timeline with all the elements positioned here. My screen is a little compressed. That's why this is so small. I can also collapse the timeline. I can also define any element in the video as a placeholder and swap that out. There's even there's an example by our CEO who coded a video generator with AI, so entirely AI generated video and speech and visuals, and then composed that with CE.SDK. we can also share that in the follow-up email. Might be good inspiration. And we've just finished our work on the server-side component. So there's more to come when it comes to generating video on the server. But that was one big limitation, but it's finally here. So definitely stay tuned. And we'll, of course, have a more involved showcase for video automation as well. Was there any specific aspect of video that was relevant to the person I asked? Let me play this. All right, and it's just about time. So taking our notes, we'll include more information in our follow-up. And if you have any other questions, something wasn't answered, then do reach out either directly to us or in response to the email, or to one of the lovely people in sales, and we'll try to answer all your questions. All right. If there's nothing more to add from your end, Claudia, I wish everyone a lovely day, end of day, night, morning, whatever. And I hope to see some of you soon in our next iteration. Definitely you, Martin.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Have an amazing Friday and weekend. And yeah, see you next time.
Bye-bye.